Hello, welcome back, regular viewer, loyal subscriber, to something a bit different. Football Manager 2022. Now, it's not my usual battle mech stomping game or turn-based tactical gameplay. I've been playing this game since 1982, I want to say, 83 maybe. When it appeared on the ZX Spectrum, 48 kilobytes, as a broadly text-based spreadsheet manager, if you like, where the rows of the spreadsheet were players on your team that you could buy and sell. Your team was part of a league table of 20 well-known football teams, and the match highlights were limited to an isometric side screen completely in green with a line drawing of a goal on it and little stickmen gradually moving across the pitch and trying to punt a little 2x2 pixel ball into the right part of the net to score a goal. And as boring as it sounds, this is quite compelling gameplay at the time. Now, Football Manager changed and has changed considerably over the 40 years that it's been out and about. A new version has come out regularly, I think, since the mid to late 90s. There have been a few hiccups along the way where the ownership of the name has been transferred between companies. It bumped into another line of games called Championship Manager. The two have kind of common points on their development history. I think the writers of Championship Manager were inspired by Football Manager in the 80s to make their own version, which on the modern computing platforms of the time, the Atari and the Amiga, was a beast, used a lot of resources to the point where it could only really run on PCs, because in essence what it was a database of players, of teams, combined with a heavy processing match engine with very sophisticated what computer game people would call AI, but sort of algorithmic decision making, if you like, based on effectively a role-playing game. Every player is modelled in the game as a set of statistics. So here we have Danny Lewis, who is a real person, real living human being, who has his image rights signed over to on a licensing agreement to Sports Interactive, who make the game via, his club and various rights bodies involved in football. And he plays at Brackley Town Football Club, which is my local town just up the road. This is what Football Manager believes, sort of, his stats are. Each of these rated on a scale of 1 to 20, where 1 is appalling and 20 is, of course, the best. So Danny here is honestly an incredibly good goalkeeper, with fantastic distribution in terms of his kicking and very, very good reflexes. But perhaps his ball control at his feet is considered not as potent. But he's 5'11" tall. Having said that, he still jumps higher on average than many players. And as a keynote, he is considered a very high quality player in terms of his personality fit, which if he's used as a mentor to young players in the club, this will rub off on them, and that will be really useful. To keep it simple, if you like, each player is rated in positions that they can adopt on the field on a 5-star basis. So Danny is considered a 3.5-star basic goalkeeper, or you could adopt a sort of more modern sweeper keeper who runs out of his area and plays ball at his feet on the outfield. But here he's only rated at a 3-star. But generally speaking, this is in relation to teams in your division. Brackley Town are in the 7th tier of English football. So they are in the Vanarama North League. There is the Vanarama National League above them. And then we get into the Sky Bet League Division 2, Sky Bet League Division 1, Sky Bet Championship, and then the Premier League above that. So there's quite a lot of teams involved in the English leagues, and this is meant to be a reasonable simulation stroke facsimile, but it's more like a role-playing game of managing a squad of football players amongst the teams of the English league in an effort to get them to rise up the league to succeed in individual football matches to the point where you get promoted and move up, hopefully earning more money and not going bankrupt in the process. So as the simulation goes, it's really split into 2 different parts. There's the management of the club. So this is managing relationships with the players, organising the training routines, sorting out tactics in advance of the games, scouting for new players, buying and selling players as assets, and managing the wage budget. This is all through sort of an email interface, but also these other interfaces help you liaise with your staff, get advice, and sort out various parts of the role of a football manager or lead coach of this club. The second part of the game is the match engine, which we'll get to in a bit, which simulates a game of 90 minutes usually, 2 45-minute halves between 2 teams adopting a certain tactical approach and involving certain playing staff in each of the roles, and they attempt to score goals against each other, and at the end of 90 minutes the team who has scored the most goals was declared the winner, and they get 3 points for the league table. If the teams draw at the end of 90 minutes and it's just a league match, then each team gets 1 point, and if you are the losing team, you get no points. In this particular division, the Vanarama North, the first team, the team at the top at the end of the season, is automatically promoted. The teams below them go through a playoff in order to determine who will be promoted alongside the winners of the division, and the 2 teams at the bottom of the division are relegated to the non-league teams below them. So there are multiple regional leagues, the Sunday leagues you might call them, the villages and the towns around the country. This is very much a lower league part-time squad, which is going to limit their ability to develop over the first few seasons. You can't train them all the time because, of course, the players are mostly part-timers, but you know, it's a reasonable facsimile of certainly the financials of managing a team of this size. And the engine has been very carefully developed over the years of game development, and is now an incredibly sophisticated mapping, albeit some of the features, as you'll see as we play it, are perhaps stronger than others in terms of their development. But we'll come to those one at a time and go through them carefully. So we've started the game. The first thing you do is set up your database of teams and leagues. The game can be trimmed down to just play one league in one particular place, and you have access to a very small database of players to buy and sell, and it is perfectly acceptable in that form. And because of that, you can play the game on quite a number of different specs of PC. I've loaded it up with a large database of players and many leagues to buy and sell players from. So there's approximately 55,000 players in the database. And on my machine it should run moderately okay. You can load every single league that the game recognises in the world, and all of the players, hundreds of thousands of players. Sports Interactive employ scouts to get real-world views on player capabilities and make sure some of the basic details are correct. And it's got to the point now where the game is often used as a first port of call for real football managers to, identify appropriate targets in terms of age, location, and possible recruitment for their teams. Because it's a computer game, you're not anticipating a high degree of accuracy, but it's quite comprehensive in terms of its coverage of teams and the people in worldwide football. It's an astonishing achievement. Having said that, I think when you're playing the game as a single player mode, that adds to the verisimilitude, how realistic it feels. When you're streaming it, or when you're broadcasting videos on it, there's always that question mark over how you treat players and how you talk about players while they're on the pitch, because these are real people with real livelihoods and careers. And you wouldn't want to give the impression that the way that you, as an ersatz football manager in this digital world, are treating people or talking to them or developing them, is any reflection on how you consider people in the real world. So it can be a little more delicate than dealing with high science fiction in the third millennium, or sort of fabulous spies in a 1950s kind of sci-fi setting. But it has something about it. It brings something of the drama of sport into the realm of people like myself, who've really had a very arm's distance relationship with anything to do with mud and studded boots. Because I have to hold my hands up, I've had a look at a lot of the YouTubers who play Football Manager on YouTube and on Twitch, and some of them clearly have a similar background to myself in terms of their relationship with Championship Manager and Football Manager in the years going back in time. Perhaps not as far as me, because I picked up the original games when they first came out in the 80s and 90s. But I've always played this, and I still play it, as somebody who really enjoys slow-paced strategic and tactical gameplay involving lots of statistics and information and numbers and risk assessments, as opposed to YouTubers and streamers who are very much coming at this from a love of football and they have their favoured clubs and a very deep and opinionated view of players and tactical systems. On the one hand, I don't come burdened with any of that, so I'm not likely to recognise particular names of players unless they come from the dark depths of my history with football, which broadly ended around 1982, when I think I last went seriously to a football match. Actually, that's not true. I've been to a few at Brackley Town, and I did, with my brother-in-law who'd come over from America, go and see, I think it was a goalless draw between Oxford and Cheltenham, which was an experience. It's certainly nothing like baseball in America in terms of crowd atmosphere. Very different experiences. But anyway, so I'm coming at this game with a sense of playing with the numbers. Although the match engine simulates a football game, I think it's a very accessible result output, if you like, from managerial decisions, because you can see humans running around and kicking a ball with the overall objective of trying to get a ball in the goal at each end. And I think even if you're coming from a completely different cultural background with no understanding of the rules of what other people might call soccer, but what I call football, you can at least appreciate how the numbers on the screen translate into the behaviour of the little avatars as they're running around the pitch. And it could be that the solution space that the game engine provides you with in terms of design, I might explore formations or approaches which are not considered canon or normal or reflective of real match tactics, but we might be surprised by some of the results or outputs from those. It's an incredibly compelling game, but it's probably better if I show rather than tell, particularly with a game of this complexity. I may well produce videos over time of going through each of these kind of menu items, and each menu item has, of course, different sub-categories to go through, and each of those may or may not be useful for particular management styles and help you make certain decisions, but we'll go through them piece by piece, and I think I can probably give quite a comprehensive coverage of each of these features, how to make best use of them, some tricks and tips that people might not have played with. The one that comes to mind particularly is in the tactics. There is something called a match plan. A match plan tells your assistant manager how you want the game to develop under certain scenarios, and each scenario is a certain score line. So you can actually automate changes to your managerial decisions, your tactics, your touchline instructions to your players using a script. It's almost like a kind of pseudo programming language. It's not very well developed in the engine. I suspect that given there's an achievement for using one of these, and only 0.5% of Steam people with Football Manager have run one of these, that it's not a very commonly used feature. But I'd like to take it through its paces and show you what it can do, and maybe that will open up a few eyes in terms of the Football Manager community, because it is coming from a place where I am learning bucket loads about real football and real football teams and competition. The passion that exudes from other streamers and YouTubers when they're actually playing these is palpable, and I think I bring something a little different because I'm ignorant, and if ignorance is a virtue, then we've certainly got that in spades here. So that's really my introduction to Football Manager, and I'm going to be delving into pieces of it one piece at a time. We'll start with my choice of club here, Brackley Town, and I'll introduce you to Brackley Town Football Club and the playing staff and the non-playing staff available to me at the start of this season, and how we're going to start making our mark as a manager from here on in. Anyway, that was it. I hope to speak to you soon, and thank you for joining me. I'll see you later. Take care. Bye.
I fought with lions and wolves, but I've never fought myself before. It's over everything